welcome the guest speakers for this session. Um, our first speaker is Professor Dr. Aliya Mataraje. Professor Mataraje is lecturer at the International University of Sarajevo. Her research expertise include late modern social, cultural, and economic history, Ottoman history, history of the Balkans, and cultural studies, among others. We're excited to have you, Professor, and the word is for you now.
Can you see me?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. Thank you for this welcoming speech. Esteemed member of the Presidency of Bosnia-Herzegovina, His Excellency Mr. Shafik Jaferovic, President of the Islamic Cooperation Youth Forum Organization, Mr. Taha Ayhan, dear organizers, participants, I would like to start with my warm regards from warm Sarajevo. I would like to express my gratitude to the organizing for opening a new sphere for dialogue for building peace, cooperation, and development in the Balkans, and providing a new platform for the Balkan youth to raise their voice. I'm honored to be invited to be a participant of the Balkan Youth Forum. Sorry, I have a bit of cold, so please excuse me in advance for any kind of problem this may cause. In my presentation, I will share with you one good example of a youth-led initiative allowing for new realms of dialogue in the Balkans, the War Childhood Museum in Sarajevo, Bosnia and Herzegovina. It is a non-for-profit independent museum focusing exclusively on childhoods affected by war. It tackles trauma at an individual level for participants whose personal stories and objects comprise the museum's collection and visitors without reinforcing ethnic boundaries. The War Childhood Museum becoming an international platform giving voice to former and current war children with projects in Bosnia-Herzegovina, Serbia, Lebanon, Ukraine, and the United States, has expanded its activities to contemporary conflict, post-conflict, and resettlement zones. It also collaborates with some of the world's leading universities and also had been presented at the largest peace-building youth and museum conferences. Its efforts have received both national and international media coverage. In addition to a collection of over 3,000 artifacts of intrinsic value, all acquired through donations, the War Childhood Museum contains an archive of audiovisual testimonies narrated by people whose childhoods have been affected by armed conflicts. The War Childhood Museum enables all the voices to be heard and documented, regardless of geographic region, ethnic, religious background, and educational level. Every person whose childhood is being or has been affected by armed conflict and would like to donate his/her memorabilia and to share his/her personal story of war experience may participate in the project by registering on the museum website. The museum pays utmost interest to the preservation of all artifacts collected. The World Child Museum, as part of the European Museum of the Year Awards, was awarded with the 2018 Council of Europe Museum Prize, which is one of the most prestigious awards in the museum industry. The judging panel praised the museum's, I quote, real potential to serve as a powerful self-sustained model of civic initiative, end of quote, and considered it as an example that could be replicated in other major conflict and post-conflict zones in the world. Adela Gambaro, the rapporteur on the museum prize, referred to the War Child Museum as advocating peace, reconciliation, and the value of cultural diversity through its collection. The War Childhood Museum actually stems from the War Childhood Project initiated by Yasmin Kohalilovic in 2010, with his launch of a call for people to send their short answers to the question, "What was the war childhood for you?" Following the responses was the first publication of his book titled War Childhood uh, in January 2013. In his book, Halilovic shares his motivation for establishing the War Childhood Museum with these lines. "The stories I heard, people I met, and everything else that I learned while working on the book have left an indelible impression upon me. Telling these stories has become my mission in life, and bringing the War Childhood Museum into existence felt like something I needed to do." He also underlines the significance of trust established with participants for realization of both his book and museum projects. May they be sharing their collections, memories, memorabilia, personal stories, testimonies. The trust established between the museum as a cultural institution and the participants sets the ground for re-establishment of trust within the divided Bosnian and Herzegovinian society. With its rich collection enlarging on daily basis, the museum provides a setting where all the testimonies produced through the practice of remembrance, memorization, and witnessing can coexist in peace rather than as sites of struggle and contestation over their meanings and power implications. In opposition to all the mechanisms enforcing division within the Bosnian and Herzegovinian context, the War Childhood Museum sets the model for civil memorialization efforts associated with transitional justice, contributing to peace and social building. The War Childhood Museum provides an alternative civil path for transitional justice by underlining the healing power of stories. May they be told by objects exhibited and or participants, and by belonging equally to everyone and exclusively to no one in a divided society. It is a youth-led project empowered by entrepreneurship, dialogue, and opportunities, and may it set an example for many more to follow in the region. I thank you for listening.
Thank you so much, Professor, for your insights and these interesting words about the War Childhood Museum. I'm personally impressed with the work, and I hope our audience will go and learn more about it after this session. Before I introduce our second panelist, I would like to note to our participants that you can ask any questions you would like to ask in the chat section, or wait until all our participants have intervened, and then you can ask any questions for any of the speakers. Our second speaker for this panel is Mr. Mario Merce. Mr. Merce is the political affairs official at the United Nations Office on Genocide Prevention and Responsibility to Protect. Mr. Merce will be talking to us now. The word is yours.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. And it's very nice to be with you, because our office at the United Nations has been quite present in the region of the Balkans. We have visited a number of countries over the years. The origins of the mandate, of the task, the responsibilities of the UN on genocide prevention, in a way, come very directly from the experience of the United Nations in this region, and the failure to prevent past genocide. That the lessons that were learned from that. One of the main lessons is that the UN, the United Nations, needed a dedicated capacity to analyze risks, collect information, be an alert, an early warning agent within the United Nations, and try to work with as many partners as possible to strengthen the overall capacity to prevent. And that's something that our office has been doing in the Balkans. It's not just about looking at the past. For us, it's very important to look at what's going on in the present. and what does that tell us in terms of what can happen in the future. No? So this is the gist of the work of our small office. Our office is led by a special advisor on the prevention of genocide. Incidentally, this special advisor, Madam Alice Nderitu, visited Bosnia in June this year. That built upon the work that the previous special advisor, Mr. Damadiang, had done in the region over the years. And through that visit, she had the opportunity of meeting many people in the country, high-level officials, of course, representatives of youth organizations. And it was very apparent to her, and that's what I wanted to mention today, especially, that a lot of the concerns that were observed from our side on the situation in that particular country, but in the region more globally, are being countered by the active, proactive, enthusiastic, and reality-changing work of many youth organizations, of people who are able to cut across the political, ethnic, religious divide to basically show that there is a strong benefit in working together, looking more towards the future than looking towards the past. Youth, in short, appears, in our opinion, to be at the forefront of change. So that's why it's so important for us to try to seek opportunities to support all this work. Let me just very briefly mention a few of the observations of this last visit, which again is more connected to Bosnia in particular, but I think can resonate a little bit overall the region, because some of the patterns are not too distinctive. As an office, we are very concerned about the ongoing trust and reconciliation deficits, especially at the high level. In Bosnia, that is very apparent. There's a polarized rhetoric of division that's very well known. What I think is less apparent, again, is that there are many initiatives, bridge-building initiatives, led by youth that are actually trying to walk the steps that the political leaders are not walking. So on that particular front, our office visited some of these initiatives. I'm very proud to say that one of the places we visited was actually the World Childhood Museum. So I'm very glad that there was a full description of this work by the previous interlocutor, and I certainly echo the encouragement for everyone to visit. But like this, many others, and these are the sort of initiatives that can pave the way for the highest political level to actually take the steps ideally, but if not, at least not block the steps that are being taken by the youth. Another major concern in our view relates to the education system. That's very well known. I think, if we zoom out from the particular experience of Bosnia to the experience in the whole region, it's a matter of how the past is taught. It's a matter of how even the infrastructure of the classrooms is designed. For us, what's very important is that the school system does not generate mistrust. Someone said, one of the interlocutors said, it's not that people are taught to hate each other, but because we're not together, we don't trust each other. And generating spaces for trust is very important. And on that, again, I have to say that we had the opportunity of visiting some places where, young professors, young teachers took active steps to basically create extracurricular activities or create physical spaces within segregated schools so that students from all groups could come together. Now, we think that's the way forward, and we encourage these sort of initiatives. And another major concern, of course, relates in our view to general matters of accountability, the transitional justice element that the previous speaker mentioned. Again, for us, it has to do with accountability and criminal justice and all these existing difficulties on that front. And that's very legal in a sense, and there's a level of cooperation. But then again, when you go to a different level, when you go to the level of transitional justice, the way the previous speaker mentioned, when you go to the level of what is it that we're doing to collect the experience of others, collect the memory. How is the memory presented? Do we present the memory in a way that signifies the differences, or do we present it in a way that shows that it doesn't matter what community you belong to, the suffering was equivalent? And these are the objects that prove that, as the World Childhood Museum in Sarajevo so well does. So all of this, I could give many examples that, of course, you all very, very well know, because you are active part of that on addressing hate speech. Likewise, that's a major issue in our view in the region, and there are a number of initiatives. And what I think I would like to conclude with now is to basically emphasize that when it comes to echoing the title of this panel, finding opportunities, addressing needs, and looking forward. Youth is at the forefront of change, but you probably also need help. So the United Nations wants to help you. Sometimes we don't succeed as much as we want in channeling that support, but please come to us, come to our office. There are a number of UN offices in the different countries in the Western Balkans who have projects precisely aimed at doing the things that I described. No? Support bottom-up initiatives that bring people together, demonstrate basically that change is possible and that you can lead it. And some of us will be very happy to hold hands with you and accompany you in this process. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mers. And it is very energizing hearing your words and the positive energy about collaboration with youth, and that the youth are indeed the forefront of change. Thank you very much. Our third speaker today is Dr. Mevlüddin İbiş. Dr. İbiş is lecturer at the Department of Political Sciences of the International Balkan University. His research and analysis expertise is in the Balkan and Turkey, with particular focus on the political history, political parties, civil society, and the political systems. Dr. İbiş, the word is yours.
Okay, thank you very much. I hope we can hear each other. I would like to thank you very much, the organizers, for calling me to have this very short session towards you. I'm very much delighted. Though when I was a student, I visited the Islamic conference in Istanbul, and that was the first touch. But now it's a bit different. The topic is very general, to be honest, and to be focused in 5 minutes is very hard. But what I can say is that I don't have, as the two previous speakers, certain landscape in which they work for, but I do more analysis, and I hope that somehow I can help this incredible audience to initiate certain activities. I think that using the term Balkans and then focusing to the Western Balkans, it's a bit interesting, and I think that because I see the audience, you have students and friends from all around the world. When we say the Balkans, then we have to include a large context of other Muslim communities living in the Balkans, from Slovenia to Bulgaria. But I do know the very fact that the focus is in the Western Balkans, having aimed the Bosnia-Herzegovinian case, North Macedonia, Albania, some part Montenegro, why not even Kosovo? I would say that the Balkans historically have played a significant role in world history in terms of being a kind of modus vivendi between the civilizations. And we are a kind of hub. Even after post-communism, we are a certain hub in which we do clash with ideological narratives, with the vividity of existence or coexistence of different religious and political communities. So with this, I would like to state, and I go fast because of the time, I would say that the Muslim community in the Balkans do play and have played a significant role historically and even nowadays. Therefore, just existing as such and without having any political narrative, I think it's losing time. And maybe this opportunity, because we are talking to the youth, this would be a great opportunity to start and initiating certain projects. Talking about today's youth in the Balkans is that talking for youngsters that are children of parents of transition. And when we talk about transition, we mean ideological transition. So in the Balkans, we had very strong socialistic approaches with ideas of communism that has been deconstructed in the 1990s. And I think these children of today's are children of those parents, which means lots of instabilities in terms of economical progress, political system division, a huge, let's say, perspective of unemployment, and so on and so forth. Therefore, using this youth, it's a kind of complex, I would say, approach, because they're very soft and they're very much vulnerable. And if you include the factor of Europeanization of the Balkans as the gate of Europe, you will find out a space that maybe in the future you won't have people, but you will have territories and political systems. Therefore, I think that new initiatives in these terms are very much important. So I think that the Islamic Conference and all the organizations that I see, in the portfolio, I don't know their labels, so I'm very sorry for not naming them. I think that you should be, or we should be, more focused not to be existent as Muslims in these communities. We don't have to provide actions for interculturalism, because even without these terms and conditions of living, we existed and we coexisted with others. I think that we have to move not only to label, as politicians do, multiculturalism. I think that the youth and others, to support them, to talk about the power sharing. Because what is missing here in these countries is that we have completely failed, quite honestly, towards the progression of multiculturalism, for not creating support and platforms of power sharing. Therefore, I would say that this would be the philosophical movement from interculturalism to multiculturalism, and how the Muslim community could play their role, not because they're not the only one existing, okay? So the Balkans, we are very much vivid in terms of ethnicities and religious perspectives. And we have to know that religion, it's very much, it goes in symphonia with ethnical identities. Somewhere no, but most of it, let's say Slavic nations go in that line. You have the Bosniaks as well with Islam. Albanians in majority are in that line. So what are the youth challenges today in the Balkans? Quite shortly. I think that I don't see quite systematic political engagement in terms of impacting the critical identity of the political elites. This is so important. And I'm very sorry if I do the narrative of political scientist. I'm very sorry if this was not the case, but I do what I know the best. They are quite active in the NGO or in the civil society, but I think that the perspective is kind of working within intra-community perspectives. I do know many activities in North Macedonia and Albania and Kosovo, but it seems to me we are focusing only within ourselves. And kind of we are talking about the problems of the entire society, but only within ourselves. It's like talking to yourself in a mirror. And I think this is a wrong methodology and wrong focus. We have to move above this. Instead of intra-partes, we should go inter-partes with other political and ethnical frames to discuss, to talk, not for cohabitation in terms of ethnicities, but for cohabitation in terms of political dimensionality. We, the youth of the Balkans, are facing with the failed states. And this is a huge demotivation for their existence, though they are looking for movement towards migration. The economic instabilities, absolutely, a very high rate of unemployment. The welfare state has systematically failed, though all the constitutions of these countries are reporting and are legalizing the concept of social welfare in terms of education, healthcare systems, and pension funds. So in these three elements, I would say that the Muslim community could do a lot to criticize and to give new opportunities. And I wouldn't say that migration is wrong as an activity, though migration gives changes in the political culture in terms of changing the economies of the livelihoods and families. But I would say that in the Balkans, the migration became a huge problem since we are small. We are very small societies. And when people move, we don't have the political credibility. Therefore, I would say, and this has been pumped with a visa-free regime that these Western Balkan countries got in 2009, if I'm not wrong. What are the suggestions? I would say that the Islamic Conference, in combination and in cooperation with the United Nations, and I'm very much glad to see the representatives of the UN, and I think that it's time to be more active as UN in terms of post-conflictual activisms. UN maybe failed in terms of preventing conflicts, but why not to be more active in supporting these youngsters in their projects? What is my suggestion towards you, and I can be also involved if you see fit, is that the Muslim communities have a huge, I would say, space and time and capacity to involve a center of research. Because when you talk to the state affairs, you cannot—
Sorry to interrupt. I have to ask you to wrap up, so maybe—
Yeah, okay, I'm at the very end, sorry. Is that it seems to me that we need to have empirical data about all the changes in the society. So creating a very important center of research or an institute, because you have all the capacities, you have the money, or you just need to have this synergy. And when you have a report about empirical data on unemployment, social entrepreneurship, migration, political corruption, you would go with the report to the state affairs, and then you look for political impact. And this is my thesis of my presentation. Let these communities, but not only Muslims, I don't want to see this very narrow-minded Muslims, but narrow-minded concept as only Muslims live here. Let us work with reports and then be open to criticize the governments. And I think that this is a huge space for all you youngsters in the Balkans. I thank you very much for your time and position to listen to me. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Ibish, for sharing these insights and needs of the youth. And indeed, there is a need for platforms for power sharing. And I hope that this platform today is one in the right direction. Thank you again. Our fourth speaker in this panel is Ms. Laura Sani. Ms. Laura Sani is a youth leader from the Bridge Initiative, Sofia. She's doing her master's degree in Islam and Global Affairs, and she has interest in Muslims in Europe, peace processes in the Middle East, and many other subjects. Ms. Sani, the word is yours.
Okay, thank you so much. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. So I'm more than grateful to be part of this beneficial forum where we can discuss the current challenges and share our aspiration for the future of the Balkan youth. Although I'm a youth leader of a Bulgarian interfaith organization and a researcher, my presentation will center on my personal experience in the region. And because I understood that some of the participants are not natives, I would like to take you on a COVID-free journey and provide an alternative, non-academic narrative to this panel as an addition to the amazing Bosnian clip we saw at the end of the opening ceremony. I remember 2 years ago, around this time, late September, early October, I was headed to an interfaith conference in Ohrid, North Macedonia. On the way there, we had to stop for lunch in the quite beautiful city of Tetovo. If I'm to walk you through their demographics, majority of them are Albanians, around 20% are Macedonians, and there are few ethnic Turks. Well, I didn't know that much about this before the experience. So it was near Zuhur time, or Olen Namaz, and I was told that there were quite few mosques around. I decided to use Google Maps as a contemporary citizen to locate at least one that is nearby so I can pray. I opened the app and I saw that the nearest mosque was only 100 meters away. After wondering for a few minutes, what does turn left mean if you face a dead end? I found myself in a village-like environment. Unpaved street, small adobe houses with reddish rooftops. A sight quite similar in rural areas of my country. But because I was exposed to the cosmopolitan part of the city at first, I was quite surprised, not shocked. I had a good point of reference living in a post-socialist country for 26 years. And by the way, I'm 26. So suddenly I saw 3 small girls appear in the horizon, having scarves wrapped around their heads. I approached them and inquired with what I know of Turkish, thinking that all Balkan people have cultural remnants of their Ottoman past. Salamu alaikum, masjid nerede? They looked at me if they were utterly confused. I thought it has to do something with my pronunciation, so I repeated even louder, masjid nerede? I figured they might speak the local language, so I continued this awkward conversation in Bulgarian, which is quite similar to Macedonian, because both are Slavic languages. They waited a bit and looked at me from head to toe. Then they responded in English. We don't understand you. Oh, well, now we agreed on a common language. They showed me the way to the mosque and introduced me as the girl from the States. Well, I have a bit of an American accent, but I haven't been there. I met with the imam, who might have thought that I was a prospective donor, which I was surely not. if you take into account that I newly graduated from a non-scientific field. You might be wondering, why am I telling you this? What is the purpose? I wanted for you to see the region through my eyes and appreciate the modern that converges with the traditional, and the religious that seems to go hand in hand with the practical. So this narration serves the purpose of giving you a hint about what we need as youth in the Balkan region and beyond to achieve the common vision that will help us construct a common future. The special ingredient, dear audience, is knowing one another. If we don't possess this vital information and utilize it cleverly to reconstruct a new demographically democratic, clearly post-socialist reality, which would not fail to offer opportunities and space for personal growth to the Balkan youth, we would continue to discuss the problems of the region, being a supplier of an interesting and diverse area of migrants, from seasonal workers to skilled engineers and doctors, increased corruption and deteriorating educational, social, and health system. As the anecdote focuses on the preconceived understanding of others without the actual engagement with them, I just wanted to start the conversation going on the ways to initiate genuine dialogue with others about whom we might not know a great deal of. Thank you very much. Jazakallah khair. And if you have any questions, I'll be more than glad to respond to them afterwards. I'm going to paste the website of the organization that I represent in the chat box, so you can check the different activities that were organized under the amazing leadership of our chair, Angelina Vladico. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Sani. And indeed, personal stories are very touching and they bring together the ideas that we want to narrate. So thank you for sharing your personal story as well with us. Now we have a few minutes for questions and answers. I'm sure our panelists will be happy to answer your questions. So if you'd like to ask a question, please post it in the chat box. I still don't have any questions there. Or use the raise hand function. I think you can. Or just put a note in the chat box and I'll get back to you with your question. Until then, I would like to ask Ms. Sani if you can briefly tell us a bit more about the Bridge initiative, Sophia. What do you do? What are your initiatives or your activities?
Yes, thank you. So as I said in the introduction in the presentation, so we're trying to kind of engage people with one another doing different activities. So we have an annual interfaith camp in which participants engage in arts activities, sports, and other other events in which they can share experiences.
Thank you very much. It is very interesting hearing from you as well. We have a hand raised by Hafiz Gifari. I hope I pronounced that right. Hafiz, if you like, can you unmute and share your question, please?
Sorry, I cannot turn on my camera due to
That's
connection
right.
issues, but is my voice clear?
Yes.
Okay. Good night, everyone from Indonesia. My name is Hafiz Gifari Berlianto. I would like to ask maybe to Mr. Mevludin. Sorry if I pronounce your name wrong. Mr. Mevludin, what I want to ask is that since previously you mentioned that a lot of problems has been surrounding the future of the Balkans and the youth in the region has to work a lot to solve it. I want to ask something. I'm sorry if it is very sensitive, but previously, as we all know, in the 1990s until the early 2000s, there was a lot of regional conflicts in the Balkans, especially after the dissolution of the Yugoslavian state. Well, even though that peace has been achieved until today, but as a history student, I'm a history student, I can see that there's a lot of uncertainty, and I'm also afraid that if the youth cannot maybe make a common peace and understanding about multilateralism, like you mentioned earlier, they possibly maybe if they have differences, maybe war could break out, maybe if that's possible. Like a few days ago, I believe that I read the news, like there was a clash between their Serbian state and also the Kosovo. To avoid things like that in the future, what can the youth of the Balkan do? Thank you. To achieve conflicts between states. Thank you.
Hafiz, thank you very much. Although you pronounced my name quite correctly. Your question is quite a question for International Conference of Peace in terms of Serbia and Kosovo. And we could talk this with weeks, because Kosovo is a specific case for us in terms of internationalism, liberalism. But my idea was that, yes, we are a post-conflictual zone, absolutely. But remember, in historical context, and as Muslims, we have to see the problem not from today's point of view. In historical context, in these 3,000 years of written history, 300 years in the world, we had peace. And guess what? The Balkans is a region in which peace and stability was existing. What I'm trying to say is that we have a seed of coexistence. But the activism of youth, of course, I'm not expecting from all of us to generate political and economical stability meanwhile. But I'm just trying to say that maybe youth, except of being only active within its own community, it should move away from this narrative and go into the interparties. And why not to be politically visualized, not with political parties, but with political criticism, which is a huge, I would say, difference. And because in the Balkans, I would say, even if Croatia is in the EU, I would go with the same understanding. We have a huge partization. So le parti c'est moi, this Louis XIV concept. The parties hear everything, like from employment, making the policies. And that's why I see a door out where the youth in the Balkans might be active by creating these policies and possible impacts. I don't know whether I answered your question, but this is as short as possible. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We have another question from Saida Mohammed. Please unmute and ask your question, Saida.
I am Saida from Jordan. Did you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, my question is to Dr. Ibesh. He said the most important point at this meeting is we have to know that not is the Islamic community is the problem. We have all the community we are dealing with. We have to focus on the effects, not on the Islam, not on the religion. And this needs a lot of money, a huge participants, a huge forms, and many effective decisions. My question is, all our meeting, all our decision, all our works are where now? Beside the politics, we don't see anything. All of them are looking to us like Islam. We don't see anyone look at our effects on Islam. Nobody treat on our effects. As he said, we have to treat with health, social security, everything, not on the small community of Islamic people, but all the religion. We have to focus on this effects, and this need the money. My question, where is this idea? How can we do this on the real life, not on the meeting, not on the forums? We need a conclusion. We need a fast decision from this political to support us, to support youth, to let us go ahead, not to start and just saying conference meeting and other things. This is my question.
Thank you, Saida. Dr. Ibish, do you like to comment?
Yeah, though the question is a bit complicated, but I'll try my best to simplify it. Before all, we are as humans in the Balkans, and I don't have to see only the Muslim identity in this perspective. But because the platform is from this background, I try to give this understanding. I think that the individuals are political creatures, and we do pay taxes. I believe you in Jordan, you do the same. And I think that having this in mind, we could go and criticize the political elites or the establishments in all those, perspectives. Though Islam is teaching us in order to have good behavior, but also it teaches us, if you just go and see the Treaty of Medina, I share to my students, and I say this is the first constitution in the world political history. It speaks about economy, it speaks about multiculturalism or interculturalism, and why not nowadays we to speak about the healthcare. We, the Muslims in the Balkans, we never had any problem. Let me just give you some comparison. Even in Yugoslavia, compared to Albania, we had freedoms of religion. Go to the mosque, pray 5 times, but don't involve into political life. We had these freedoms compared to China, Albania, and other places. But I think that we have to move beyond this perspective, and the political involvement is quite, I would say, substantial and important for the Muslims in general. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We have a couple of questions in the chat box. The first is from Musaddiq Mubarak from India. I hope I pronounced that correctly. The question is, what are the ways to promoting positive behavior, and how do we encourage good behavior? I guess that is among youth. And if anyone from the panelists would like to engage with this question, please go ahead.
I mean, I'm happy to just say a few comments on this along the lines of what I was mentioning before. I think it's important that we know where it is and that we give visibility to it, and that we show that it works. I mean, that based on our experience, those very micro, small initiatives that youth groups in small remote locations have been putting forward to change the narrative have been immensely successful. I can remember now this municipality in northern Bosnia called Bosanski Petrovac, where the month of September was very charged politically and humanly, for tragedies during the Balkan wars that affected different communities in different years. Basically, youth groups decided to get together and convince the local authorities to transform that month into what they call the September month of peace. And as we speak this month, there are a number of initiatives. It's a very small place, but not many people know about it. So I think promoting means supporting, and that's again a big onus comes to organizations like the one I represent, because we do have sometimes the inability to identify those options and try to channel resources to those. But I think it's important to basically explain that narrative and show that the people who live it are actually better off, that it does make sense. And if that again can help the way for the political leaders to follow that example, or at least not to block it, that's a big achievement. But yeah, that's a very general answer to this. But I think also another thing is providing platforms to explain this. I mean, I remember now our office a few years ago supported the establishment of a Balkan atrocity prevention network. Maybe some of the participants today are part of that. That had to do with convening different organizations in the same space so that they could talk about what they're doing, a little bit what you're doing today. So that very simple exercise led to the establishment of some sort of informal institution that is now committed to cooperate on a series of programs. So yeah, these are all micro interventions, but can make a big difference for those who are part of them. And more importantly, as it was said before, so that the stories explain beyond the self-communities and goes to the broader audience. Thank you.
Thank you. We are a bit behind time, but we will take one last question from Azra, maybe. I apologize for the others. Azra, can you say your question, please?
Yes, thank you. I hope you hear me well. I will try to keep it short, I promise. First of all, thank you for having me here. My question revolves around ideologies. We were speaking about them, and my question would be, because ideologies are kind of tricky and we are impacted by them one way or the other as youth. So my question would be, how can we break off from ideologies? And if we are impacted by as youth, and what would be the first step from breaking off of them? If I'm not directing this question to anyone, if someone wants to answer, that would be my question. Thank you.
Thank you. Would one of our
I
speakers
would leave
like?
the floor to others if they want to answer the question. In that case, can I answer the question so that the question could be answered?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, ideologies are not a negative construction. Okay, ideologies are a platform of set of ideas that political establishments, religious communities, local communities, individuals might foresee for the future of the society, whether we impact politically or economically. The problem of ideology, why I used and others presenters use the term ideology, is that we had this transiting period, specifically in the Balkans, from communism to democracy. And why I use this example, though very shortly because of the time, is that when ideologies or when political systems are going to cut, you have discontinuity. When you have discontinuity, one example, in communism, we had nationalization of private property. Okay, then for 40 years, yours became ours. In 1990s, a new law comes and says, ours is yours. So privatization. And in this space, you have created a new position of political and financial oligarchs. And you have left a huge space of unemployed people from the factories and the economic commodities. And you have done a huge, negative action in the Balkan states, including ex-Yugoslavia, I mean specifically, but why not even Bulgaria? There was horrific, the economic transformation there. So ideologies for me are not wrong per se, but we need to go within. And I think that humans are political creatures, and ideas and ideologies will remain as such. We might work on them, we might transform them, but I don't think that humans can exist without ideas and ideologies. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And on behalf of myself and all the participants, I would like to thank our panelists. And we're still not finished, though. I would like, after thanking all the panelists, to introduce a small or short session, a story sharing session by Amina Kahriman, a student from the International University of Sarajevo, who will be sharing a short personal story with us. Meanwhile, there are a few unanswered questions in the chat box. So if our panelists would like to have a look at them and answer any of them, please go ahead. Again, thank you very much for joining us. And I'll leave you with Miss Amina. If you are here, please go ahead.
Thank you very much. Dear ladies and gentlemen, dear ICYF officers, respected guests, and my dear colleagues, as well as country mates, Assalamu alaikum and good afternoon to everyone. It is my real pleasure to be here today, and it is nice to see all of you, at least in this online format. My short but up to point speech will help you to gain some information as first about me and about my perspective and experience as from a person who lives, studies, and works in Balkans. So as you have already said, my name is Amina Kahriman. I come from Sarajevo, Bosnia and Herzegovina. I'm third year undergraduate student at the Department of International Relations at International University of Sarajevo. And also I'm a country coordinator for MIC program. To be honest, I don't want to sound pessimistic, but this speech is not going to be a story about fantastic life. I will just try to show the reality of life over here. I believe that my story is not so specific, but I think it can be a great example of how you can take the maximum out of circumstances which cannot be changed. So my life started exactly here in Bosnia, where 25 years ago, unfortunately, genocide and massive murders happened. Living in such environment where political, economic, and social situation is getting worse every single day is a big challenge, especially for a young and ambitious person, as I am. All these challenges and problems gave me an inspiration to try to build my life exactly here. I'm sure that it would be much easier to live in my country and to go in any other where most of our problems probably would be solved. But I'm a challenging person and my challenges started since my childhood. Besides of the fact that I was young, I realized that I really have to give 100% of my power and willingness, and I did so because I really wanted to be successful. Balkan is a region which has a lot of potential, especially if we could cooperate way more than we do. Many of our potentials, both material and immaterial, could lead us 50 years in advance. But the real question is, do people who are at the top of the states working to satisfy their own interests or interests of the society? If I wanted to, I could list all the problems, and then probably my speech would last for a few days. So instead, after this quite pessimistic introduction, I want to list the opportunities and to say thanks to people who really care about what we do and what the youth in Balkans thinks and feels. The biggest credit for why I am here today and the biggest resource that gives me insight into the functioning of the youth world on the rest of the planet is my participation in the Model Organization for Islamic Cooperation. Widening my horizons through perspective of Muslim youth is something that definitely helps me to give ideas about possible solutions, which I can, so to say, copy and paste in my environment. Many other things, such as involvement in international projects, university activities, and many other things are giving me the opportunity to observe what can be improved, and I'm so thankful for these. I cannot say that I have a recipe for a successful process of growing up in Balkans, but I can give you directions about the way which helps me to overcome these issues. Working, growing, and improving, 3 key words. I'm a person who does not have a free hour in a day. The best way to stay focused is to be productive more than you think you can, because we have to push our limits. That's exactly the biggest challenge here in the Balkans. I think I'm very good at that, because when it comes to taking part in new opportunities, I'm always the one who applies, no matter of the fact that I have no time to rest. Right now, as I've already said, I'm attending university. I'm working as a radio host. Also, I'm a facilitator for 2 projects with international organizations. I'm doing my internship in IR office, being a country coordinator for my program, and I'm volunteering in my community. If you ask me how you can handle all of this, probably I would not have the answer. But I think the only correct answer is about willingness to contribute to your environment on one hand, and to improve your skills and your knowledge on the other hand. It doesn't matter if you're in Balkans or anywhere else in the world. Cultural differences, social attitudes, religious turmoils, etc. are present in our region, as you probably heard before. From my perspective, I'm not looking on it as a risk or a threat. I believe that's a true wealth, which is waiting for younger generations to take the best out of it. And to conclude, in my opinion, we really need more serious dialogue and political cooperation, including every single state in the region. We need educational platforms in Balkans, such as MOIC in ICYF exist. Also, opportunities for improvement and education in politics and in media needs to be improved. And last but not least, we need moral youth, which is going to satisfy the needs of whole society without trying to work hand in hand with corrupted individuals. This may sound as something basic for the other regions, but this is the reality of the Balkans. Life is not so much about beginnings and endings as it is about going on and on and on. Through this speech, I really wanted to show you that besides of these circumstances and problems in our region, we really do have huge potentials in our youth. We have those ambitious persons who are ready to serve for this country, for this region, in order to live in some better times, of course, and with better chances. I hope that our next opportunity to talk about Balkans will be based on many positive change that happened meanwhile. Thanks for your kind attention, and it was my pleasure to be here today with you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Kahriman, and best wishes with your future. Again, I would like to thank everyone for joining for this session. Now I will leave you with a workshop on how to prepare a declaration. Your trainers will take on, but thank you everyone, and it was a pleasure seeing you all virtually, and I hope that the rest of your time here will be very productive. Thank you very much, and I'll give the word to the trainers now.